guys, Robbery46 here, and welcome yourselves to the race results and analysis from yesterday's MotoGP race at Motegi. And it was Jorge Lorenzo on pole, really closely followed by Valentino Rossi in second. The two Yamahas just split by 0.081 of a second. So it was a wet race. Well, it was damp, but wet enough to mean that everyone had to start on wet tyres, and people were thinking, well, this is obviously Rossi's ideal situation, really good on the wet. So off the line, Rossi got probably one of the best starts I've seen him have in a very long time, and from second place on the grid he managed to get into the lead straight away. Lorenzo decided to take a really wide line around turns 1 and 2, which gave him a really good drive down the straight into turn 3, and he managed to get past Valentino Rossi into the lead. A bit further back, the Repsol Hondas was struggling a little bit. Marquez qualified third, but he was back down in about 7th or 8th, and Pedrosa qualified 6th and was 6th at that point. It was Andrea Iannone who was in 3rd, and Alicia Spargo who got up into 4th on the Suzuki. After the first lap, Lorenzo had already started to pull out a lead. It was over a second after the first lap, and after 3 laps it was over 2.5 seconds. So it was looking a bit ominous, but it was a race of 2 halves. Lorenzo continued to push. Something we don't usually see him do in the wet. He did have his little mask on, his the little nose protector in his helmet to stop his visor steaming up, so he wouldn't have vision problems. But yeah, he was pulling away. A bit further back you had people battling. You had Bradley Smith, who was quite high up into about 7th place. Crutchlow is working his way up through the order as well, as was Pole. And Pedrosa was still in 6th. Just got a bit lonely at one point for him. Dovi managed to get past Iannone. Iannone started to have problems, but caught the way through the race and started going backwards, which meant that Dovizioso got past him quite quickly, and was hounding Rossi for the first quarter of the race. When Lorenzo pulled away, Dovi caught up to Rossi, and Rossi was trying to pull away. Slowly but surely, Rossi was pulling away from Dovizioso. And then we hit the halfway point. Danilo Petrucci, unfortunately, crashing out on his Pramac Ducati, and a couple laps later, Andrea Iannone, he had started going backwards. Unfortunately, he had a mechanical and had to retire out of the race. The Ducati GP15s were using 4 winglets instead of 2, so they had an extra 2 winglets on the side of their GP15s. Alicia Spargo, he ran on into the gravel, managed to get back on track, but he had lost quite a lot of places, and he was trying to work his way back up through the order. At this point, Lorenzo had about 3.5 second lead over Rossi. Dovizioso had dropped back from Rossi a bit, and Pedrosa had moved up to 4th and was closing in on Dovizioso in 3rd. And this was when the track was starting to dry because it wasn't raining anymore. There was a dry line that was starting to appear, but it was still pretty wet in other places, so not dry enough to warrant slick tyres. But Pedrosa was going quite a lot quicker than Dovizioso, about 1.5 seconds, and he soon caught Dovizioso and passed him. And yeah, the Hondas had started to come to play. Marquez was getting his groove back. Obviously, he was nursing his hand injury, so he never really looked himself throughout the whole weekend. But yeah, he started going quicker as the track dried out. Bradley Smith, he got in a battle with Cal Crutchlow for 6th and 7th place. And 11 laps to go. Loris Baz came in, changed tyres, and changed bike. Had a bit of a problem with his first bike, so changed bike. And then ended up retiring. Maverick Vinales, he ended up crashing out. Jack Miller had a crash, got back on, but then later on in the race he crashed again, so Jack Miller had 2 crashes. Second crash meant that he couldn't remount and get back on it. Back at the front, Dani Pedrosa was hunting down Valentino Rossi. He was going 1.5 seconds quicker than both Rossi and Lorenzo, as the front tyres of the Yamahas was starting to go off, as was Dovizioso's, as he started to slip back into the clutches of Marc Marquez, who was closing him down in 5th place. And Pedrosa got up to Rossi and got past him with not much effort. He could get better drives at corners and was a lot more stable on the brakes. And then Rossi decided to cling on to the back of Pedrosa to see if he could claw him up to Lorenzo, because by this point Lorenzo's front tyre was shredded to hell. When he was on hard braking, even though the bike was completely upright, it was still wiggling all over the place, and you could tell that he definitely had front end issues, taking it quite gingerly around certain corners. And Pedrosa was hunting down Lorenzo, and Rossi wasn't that far behind Pedrosa. I think Pedrosa kind of sped Rossi up a little bit more, and then Pedrosa caught Lorenzo and got past him on the brakes. You could definitely tell that the Hondas had looked after their tyres a lot more than the Yamahas. As on the brakes, the Dani Pedrosa on the Honda looked a lot more stable than Lorenzo on the Yamaha. So he got past Lorenzo, and Rossi was only 1.2 seconds behind Lorenzo now. Earlier on in the race he was 3.5 seconds behind, but now he's only 1.2 and closing. A bit further back, Marc Marquez caught up to Andrea Dovizioso in 4th place and had a little battle with him, managed to get past and managed to get himself into 4th place. Bradley Smith and Cal Crutchlow were still having their battle for 6th and 7th place. Katsuyuki Nakasuga was the top wild card in 8th place. And a bit further down, Scott Redding just made it into the top 10. Alicia Spargaro managed to get his way through a few of the people. Alex DeAngelis not racing. He had a really nasty crash, and he's not in a good way at the moment. He's stable but critical. So I hope he gets well soon, and he's back racing, because it wasn't a nice crash, and it's never nice to see these guys get hurt. But yeah, back at the front, Pedrosa started pulling away from Lorenzo, and Rossi had caught up to Lorenzo. It was right on his back wheel, and with just 4 laps to go, Lorenzo went wide into one of the left-handers, which allowed Rossi through, and then Rossi started to pull away from Lorenzo. Both the Yamahas had front tyres not good at all, but Rossi just managing to save his a little bit more than Lorenzo. Lorenzo pushing a lot harder in the opening stages of the race. Also, Lorenzo did have the winglets on the Yamaha. That could have been a factor for tyre degradation. The wings obviously pushing the front into the tarmac a bit more than Rossi, who didn't have the wings on his Yamaha. So, over the line, it was Dani Pedrosa who took the race win, his first race of 2015 and his 50th in his career. Valentino Rossi came home in 2nd, which was important because he did beat his teammate Jorge Lorenzo, who came home in 3rd. So Rossi did get a 4-point advantage, taking his 14-point lead up to 18-point lead. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. But 3 races to go, 75 points left on the table. It's still going to be close. Marc Marquez, with his hand injury, came home in 4th. Good ride from him. Andrea Dovizioso, after having some front end issues himself with his front tyre, managed to come home in 5th. Cal Crutchlow got the top Brit honour and the top satellite bike honour in 6th place, just beating Bradley Smith, who came home in 7th. Katsuyuki Nakasuga came home in 8th on that beautiful liveried Yamaha M1, yellow and black colours. Hector Barbara, top open bike, in 9th place. Scott Reddin came home in 10th. Alicia Spargo, after that early runoff, came home in 11th. Takumi Takahashi, Honda's test rider, came home in 12th. Nicky Hayden was 13th. Yoni Hernandez 14th. Mike DeMeglio was 15th. Alvaro Bautista 16th. Eugene Lavity 17th. Stefan Bradl 18th. Kazuki Akiyoshi, who was wildcarding on Carl Abraham's Honda, was 19th. And Tony Elias, who was lapped, came home in 20th. I did forget to mention Paul Espargaro, who was not in the final results. He crashed out with 2 laps to go. Obviously his front tyre just couldn't cope with it anymore, and unfortunately he went down. So another non-finish for Paul. But yeah, that was the race. The championship is definitely going to be very close. The next 3 races, well, they're going to decide it. I think it's definitely going to go down to Valencia. Obviously, the last time Rossi was in that situation, he lost the championship. He doesn't like Valencia anyway, but I think he would hope to get it wrapped up before Valencia. But with Lorenzo's form, I know that he didn't manage to beat Rossi this time, but Lorenzo ain't going to give it up without fighting, that's for sure, and neither is Rossi. So we're in for a real treat for the last 3 races. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave this video a like, subscribe to my channel for more content, and I shall see you guys in the next video. See you.